I had a lot of stuff, 20 plus years of stuff to confess, my first confession ever. And when he did that prayer of absolution over me, I felt as if in the center of my being, that's what I refer to my heart, the center of my being, it was as if this dark liquid just poured out into the palm of his hand.
Welcome to Cajun Miracles. I have with me today as my guest Michael Washburn. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, Mr. Rock.
I've seen you in adoration all the time, and finally asked him one day if he had a miraculous encounter, and he said he surely had. So, Michael, let us have it. Go ahead and tell us about it.
All right. Well, it's actually been quite the miraculous life I've had, because I actually wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Lord. My mom had me young. I think she was about 17, going to be 18, in the Philippines. And she gave birth to me on the way to the hospital. And I think she was on like a motorbike with a side cart. And she was in the side cart. And she told me this when I was much older. But she said that she thought about aborting me because she said the labor pains was like, it was a lot. And she was considering aborting me. But then she said that night in her dream that the Lord, Jesus visited her and told her, why are you trying to give up this gift we've given you? And she said she'd been praying for a child, and then she had got it, but then she wanted to, get rid of me. And because of that dream, though, she decided to keep me. And, I was born at 6 months. I was 3 months premature. My ear was like folded down because I wasn't fully developed. But she kept praying and like trying to unfold it, and thanks be to God, I look relatively normal. I just had to stay in the ICU for like maybe a month for breathing. I think for all my siblings it was like that. We was all born premature. But yeah, like I didn't even really know about the Lord, but before I came to be, he knew me and he saved me. So, I think when I was growing up in New Hampshire, I went to pre-K, and we had like a little religious class. I remember like on the doors of the classroom, like mine was a bear, my sister had a butterfly, so it wasn't even like room numbers or nothing, it was just images. But I remember I must have went to like a private school or something, because a priest came in one day, and we was all making sure to be in our good behavior. And he came up to us and he prayed over all of us, and he gave me like it was like the book of Psalms, or it had like the New Testament in it. It has American flag. This book belongs to you. And, I kept it with me. But, yeah, like I loved living up in New Hampshire. It was very mountainous, and they had snow and all that. That was all really enjoyable. I remember me being adventurous. I had my older friend Bryant. We would always play in the woods next to the apartments we lived in. There was like woods, a hill, and then like a Kmart or something at the top of the hill. And one day I'm just playing in the woods with my friend. I had a very adventurous spirit, so I led the way. And we found a train track. It was below this hill. Wherever we came out from, we was on top of the hill, and we descended down, and I was playing on the train track. And in the distance, just our luck, a train happened to be coming down the track. So we climbed back up the hill. My friend Bryant, being older and I guess wiser, he went to the very top of the hill, and I stood with my back against it, like I was still along the slope. And when the train was passing, I guess it was just a big gust of wind that came by from it, and I wasn't very well seated on the hill, and I lost my footing, and I began to slip. And I remembered when I slipped, I turned around, and it was like a slow motion moment all of a sudden. I was looking back behind me, and I could see that the trajectory of my fall, I wasn't going to land on top of the train, I was going to land on side of it. But it really seemed to me that I was about to die. Like no matter how I tried to like mentally envision like my trajectory and everything, is like all I could come to the conclusion was I was about to die. And when that happened, I believe I blacked out, because I wasn't just in this fall motion anymore. I didn't see nothing at all. I was just in this darkness, and I just felt myself suspended. But then all of a sudden, because I was totally disconnected from reality at that time, I just felt like I was suspended in this dark place. And I felt my hand grab something, which is crazy because, me being disconnected, I wasn't thinking about nothing. I didn't tell my hand to do that, but my hand grabbed something. And just feeling that, it jerked me out of that disconnect I was in, and I opened it's like I came back to myself, and I was grabbing onto a root that I didn't see sticking out the hill. That was very odd. And I was able to hold on to that root long enough until the train passed, and I tried to pull myself up the hill with the root, and it broke, and I tumbled back down the track. And
when you fell down the track, where'd you land? When you fell down the hill, on the track?
Yeah, I was right alongside of it.
Along the place.
Oh, I forgot to mention that before I was suspended into that dark place, I literally saw my life flash before my eyes. It's like, you're watching a monitor, but then you're zoomed in to where you just see the screen. You don't see nothing else. And it's as if someone was flipping through the channels really quickly, but every channel was a moment of my life. And then after it was like over, I was young, probably like 6. So there wasn't much to see,
Mm-hmm.
But after it was over, it just faded. It just is as if the screen turned off, and that's when I was suspended in that blackness. But yeah, after that, I was pretty shaken up. I guess the Lord's grace was moving too, because apparently people in the neighborhood and my parents were all looking for us. I didn't think we were gone that long, but they were looking for us, and we came back, and I told them what happened. My parents really didn't believe me because I guess it sounded too crazy, but yeah. It was miraculous. Like, it really made me feel insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And it made me want to do something more to my life because I just almost lost it. But then, I was so young that eventually over time, I just got back into the swing of being a kid, and I just continued on with my daily life, which I guess is a healthy thing. Trauma, it really can mess someone up. But yeah, it's like, I've always had like spiritual stuff happen within me and my family. They were raised Catholic. My mother was. She was pretty devout before she had us. She would teach my sisters to pray the rosary, and she never taught me. Thought that was kind of odd, and I felt like, oh man, that's not fair. Why do they get to do this and I don't? But the Lord ended up bringing me back to that. Growing up, just school, normal troubles of life. I was mixed, so I wasn't typically a white guy. I was considered to be Asian, even though I'm like part Filipino, part Polish. But kids don't really care about that. If you look different and they could find something to make fun of you, they will. And I in turn did too, but that's just, I guess, a normal childhood. But as I got older, like, the troubles in my life kind of really weighed upon me. Stuff with school, like, I always would go there and I just felt like real tired. I was just really tired. Like, so much so that people thought I was on drugs. Like, they thought I was high or something because I don't know. I guess I was too laid back and eyes back. I don't know. And eventually I did get into drugs because I'm like, well, shoot, everyone assumes I'm on drugs. I might as well try it, I broke down. I just wanted to experience it. And so I did. It was mainly marijuana, but then that led to pills. And I also had this interest in Middle Eastern spirituality, like the Buddhist monks, like in meditating and all that. And I would try to do that because my life seemed so turbulent that I wanted to find some kind of inner peace, some kind of inner calm. So I would try to really still myself and just be open, just to be open. And I would do that every now and then. And I had this ache within me that life was more than what I had, than what I was experiencing and living. Like, I would remember it was just several nights when I really felt that ache. I would lie in my bed and I would just reach my arm out to the sky. Like, I just knew there was something more. I didn't know what it was, but I was just reaching for it. And I started to have this, when I was in this depression, I would have this deep depression. Like, I was stuck at home and I would see these shadows sometimes, and I just felt sapped in my energy sometimes, and I would just go to bed. And I had this weird spiritual paralysis happen to where I was sleeping, and it's like I woke up, but I guess I was still in a dream because I couldn't move. I tried looking to my left and right. I seen my sisters and everyone around me just going on with their daily life. But then at the foot of my bed was this thing that looked like a tormentor from Harry Potter. It was just this cloaked, ragged figure that had like no physical limbs. It was just like I could see an outline of where a face would be, but it was
Kind of like
just
the
all
Grim
darkness.
Reaper of sorts?
Yeah. But there's no bone or nothing, you know. It was just the rag of itself, torn and just wispy like. And it's as if it had its arm reached out to me, but I didn't see no arm. But it's just I could see like a hole as if that's where the arm would be, and I was freaking out. So I tried to like just wake myself up, and I thought I did. So I kind of rolled over on my bed, and I looked at the foot of my bed again, and this time there was two of them there. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And I remembered in that moment of desperation, I remember being told, because, you know, when I was younger, I went to that private school and I was religious, that when you pray, you're talking to God. So in that moment, I just called out to God for help. And when I did that, I felt like beyond myself, I felt this light pierce through the building I was in, into the room I was laying in, and it hit near that entity. And when it did, that thing just like dispersed like ashes. And there was no more this dread, or all these bad emotions just went away, and there was a peace there. And then I actually woke up this time. I woke up, and when I slowly opened my eyes and I looked towards the foot of my bed, there's a dresser right next to my bed. I was on a bunk bed, so I was on the top bunk, and there was a dresser right there at the foot of my bed. And on top of the dresser, there was this rose that was just floating there on top of my dresser. And it was beautiful, more beautiful than any rose I've ever seen, because it had this light that was shining off of it, and it had like these little like diamond-shaped stars that was like all around it. It was like made it sparkle, and the stem disappeared, and it was just the rose bud itself, and then that vanished. I didn't know what to think about that at the time, but you know, I learned we had computers and all that, so I was looking up stuff, and I guess in the love language of flowers, you know, rose means you're loved, you know. That's a person that you love. And I felt like God manifested that just to remind me that he loves me and that he's there with me, that he really heard my prayer and he rescued me. But, you know, at the time, I still wasn't going to church. Like, my family, we used to go, like I said, my mother taught my sister how to play rosary. They used to do that together. But then my family, my parents got divorced. And, you know, that's where things went downhill. And that's with the school life. That's how I got into drugs too. It was just, my parents had a divorce. I got my first girlfriend. After 3 days, she broke up with me because I made her ex jealous. So then I had my first heartbreak, I guess you could say, on top of all this family stuff, and then just me taking drugs. So life was just not really going anywhere. And my friends tried to help me out that depression. They got me a job at Route 21. I was working in the clothing store, just stocking, you know, I was doing stock in the back room. I mean, I used to do that so much. Even in my dreams, I would just see mountains of boxes, and I'm like, oh. But, yeah, like, back then, like, growing up, video games was a big comfort for me and my family. It's something we leaned upon. We grew closer as a family, and it was just a crutch for, like, the daily struggles of life. Whenever I had a hard day, you know, I'd just go play games. That was how I'd relax, just get my mind off of that. But it really, really overtook my life. Like, it was an addiction for me.
How many hours a day you think you'd play a video game?
A lot. Almost as if it was a part-time or full-time job. Yeah.
Like 8 hours or something?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. If I was really into it, I mean, I poured all my energy into whatever I did like that. And I was always thinking about how to get better, how to improve my strategy. So it really took over. Like, I would even dream about the video games. Whatever I mean, it's no wonder I put so many hours into it. Of course, I would see it in my dreams then. It was on my mind, even when I wasn't physically looking at it or playing it. But it just felt like there was just more. There was more that my heart longed for, but I just couldn't, because my daily routines, I just felt so trapped. And like I said, I got into pills after marijuana, and the pills, like, I was overdosing. I was just overdosing on like almost like cold flu medicine stuff. I was taking like 16 pills at a time. You're only supposed to like take 2 every 4 hours.
Wow.
I was taking the whole box.
What?
Yeah. And I didn't really realize what harm I was doing to myself. I just realized like we would begin to hallucinate. And for me personally, I felt like it made like my brain activity increase. So just me with my interest in like, Eastern mysticism, I'm like, man, what if I tried like meditating and tried to focus this increased brain activity onto like just one thing? Like, what would happen? So under the effects of these drugs, I would just meditate. And I would meditate all night. It's like I did it to the point where I guess the drugs helped induce me to be in like a almost like REM sleep, but I was totally conscious and aware. And I started having like these weird visions when I did it. Lord knows it may have been induced by some of the drugs, but then some of them just seemed to be more than that, because, it wasn't our first time doing it. We kept doing it over and over. And, I got used to some of the side effects of the drugs, but then there was something different that came when I would meditate with it. And it's like I started seeing this light. The way I would meditate, I would have my legs crossed, and then I would have my hand like this, because it was just the most comfortable way for me to meditate. Like whenever I would get so deep in my meditation, I wouldn't even be aware of my own heartbeat anymore. That's just how still I was. I was kind of almost disconnected from my body, as if when you do sleep, when you dream, I wasn't aware of all these things anymore. I was just stuck in whatever vision I was experiencing. And this light would come to me, and it would just felt so comforting, and it would sit there right in my hand. So I kept trying to just visit that light, because I felt like it was something different. And it was so weird too. Whenever I meditate, just I guess being still for so long, it's like my skin would just start to conduct electricity, and people around me, they would get shocked when they would come near me. And so I thought that was like, oh man, I must have some electrical powers. And this is like when Percy Jackson came out. So I'm like, oh man, I'm like Zeus, I'm like Percy Jackson. I'm doing all this stuff. And they had other shows, like these little shows about Naruto and stuff, and people had control over elements. So me and my friends, this is our upbringing and our influence. We're thinking, oh, maybe we can control elements, and I have electricity. So, we're just gullible sheep. We don't know any better. And we would all pray and just be overdosing and doing all that. Well, one day, like, that light came back to me. And this time it spoke to me, and it spoke to me as if it was a very strict and concerned parent. It said, you need to stop. You do not know what you're doing. There's another way to reach this. And I was so taken back by that, because like I said, it felt like it was a concerned parent talking to me. And because of his attitude and his voice, I'm like, oh man, I didn't realize like I'm actually really messing up. Like even my girlfriend at the time, she was really concerned for my health and stuff. I'm like, no. It's like what I'm doing is like revolutionary. Like maybe I can make it to where we're not using fossil fuels anymore, and we can live off the energy of people meditating. I was just, I was lost at the time though. I didn't have no job. I didn't have really much ambition or desire. So I was just trying to do something that made me feel like I was important, like I was doing something. But I was actually killing myself and didn't realize it. Like one of my friends said, Michael, you think maybe you guys are having these experiences because you're almost dying? And I was like, what? No, of course not. But then like one time during meditation, I felt as if an angel came into my body and I could feel wings on my back. And I'm like, wow. I didn't realize like maybe the Lord sent that because I literally was on the verge of dying, and that angel had to sustain my life. But, after that voice told me, to stop, I wish I could say I did, but I didn't. I wanted to try to see it one more time. So I overdosed again, and I tried meditating, but this time it was nothing. There was no vision. It was just me sitting there. And when I'm meditating with my eyes closed. It's just blackness and then just waves of colors, and it's just nothing. Like, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop. You said there's another way to do this. I don't know what I'm doing to myself. You're right. I'm going to stop. And, you know, before that, though, like, I had this one encounter. I believe it was with the Lord. I was meditating at my friend's house one night. It was a typical trip, but then something weird happened where when I was in meditation, I had this vision where I was like almost in like a clay hut or something, a clay building. And it seemed like it was in the Middle East. I saw an angel flying through this window and kneel down right inside of me. And he raised his head up. And in front of me was this table. It was on a higher level than the floor I was on. And there was a woman there with a man at her left. The woman spoke first and she said, "Chosen." Then the man spoke and he said, "Chosen."
She said what? Chosen?
Chosen. I'm like, that's weird. After I woke up from that vision, there was a whole night of meditation when I had that vision. I woke up to the birds chirping because it was morning. Early in the morning, the birds began to chirp. So went about my day, hung out with my friends, blah, blah, blah. We planned on meditating again that night. I felt like the effects wore off really early that night. So I doubled up again and took another 16 of those COVID. So I did 16, felt that it wore off early, and did another 16. And then things got crazy after that. Like, I was looking at my friends, and whenever I closed my eyes, I would see them as they were, but it would be like a warped, distorted reality where if I was looking at you, I could see you how you're normal. Then the second I blink, I see you there, but then you have snake eyes. And then you just look like you want to harm me. And I had this paranoia around me, like, because then it seemed like I couldn't tell what was reality anymore. Because when I would close my eyes, I would see them, but then it was just darkness. And it's like I couldn't even tell when I had my eyes closed anymore because of how clear I was seeing that evilness. And I remember I walked outside. I had my socks on. And the night, I think this is why I'll never forget that. It was the year the Saints won the Super Bowl. So everyone was watching the football game. And I walked outside with my socks on. I think they must have had rain that day too because I walked down the front lawn with my socks on and there was like some dew on the grass. And when I did that, you know, your socks naturally get soggy. But in this overdose drug state I was in, when I looked down, it was as if I was in lava. All the ground around me became lava and it's like I was sinking in. So when I stood still, I was sinking into this lava. So I had to move. I had to keep moving. And when I looked up at the sky, at the stars, it made this pentagram that, you know, the Satanist use. I'm like, what the heck? And when I saw that, I'm like, it made me feel like as if the devil had won. Like he had won a battle or something. I'm like, this isn't right. God's supposed to win. What's going on? And my friends, they realize I'm tweaking hard and they try to get me to come back inside. But I'm like, no, I can't. I felt like I had to go somewhere. I just had to get away. So I'm sitting there walking on the streets. Oh, okay. I actually did have my shoes on. I did have my shoes because I remember when I was walking in the street, my body temperature must have been so high from these drugs that the tar underneath my feet at one point, it felt like it was bubbling and coming onto the side of my shoe. So that sinking feeling I had when I was walking in the grass that was in lava, I would begin to see that again. My girlfriend tried to follow me and protect me, but I wasn't having it. And when I looked at her, she looked like a succubus demon. So I was like, no, get away from me. I jumped this fence and I ran away. And when I started looking at the ground, I would see this yellow arrow. It's like it was pointing me somewhere. And then I would see that lava again when they try to go back to where I was. I'm like, no, I can't go that way. And then I remembered there was a church nearby where those arrows were pointing. I'm like, that's it. That's where I have to go. You know, because God is good. God is holy. Whatever's happening to me, it just felt evil. And so I went to this church. It was by the mall. I believe that's St. Bernadette.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there and for some reason, I guess Lord willing, the door was open.
What time of the day was this? Or was it nighttime?
Yeah, this was definitely past 9 o'clock, probably 10 o'clock at night. And, you know, I tried the side doors. It was locked. And then I think I went through the front door and for some reason it was open. My friend was there with me, trying to call me back. I'm like, no, I have to be here. Like, I felt like I had to crucify myself like Jesus. Like, I have to be here. And he realized he couldn't talk me out of it. So he just went to go get my friends. And I'm sitting in there. I haven't been in church in so long. It's been years. And I'm like, all right, maybe I need to read the Bible. So I'm going in the pews and I see these thick books. I'm like, all right, this must be the Bible. It says The Gathering. I'm like, huh? I start opening it and it's just hymnals. It's a bunch of songs and stuff. So I try to sing it the best I can. I'm in the middle of the aisles. And, you know, before I did that, I was looking around for something to hurt myself with, to puncture myself with. But I couldn't find nothing. Nobody was there either. And then in the middle of that aisle, it's like I just came to myself. I guess the drugs were starting to wear off because I'm like, oh man, like what have I done? I was just so mean to my friends. I pushed them all away. I really reflected on my life. Like I was in my 20s by then. My sisters were going to college. I mean, I had worked in a clothing store. I wasn't going anywhere in my life, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I'm just overdosing on drugs, being a jerk to my friends, and I was so ashamed of myself. And then with all my being, I just said, I was talking to God. I said, I'm so lost. I repeated it. I'm so lost. And when I said that, I felt like every pore in my body opened up. Like I said that with all my being. And I'm just sitting there coming to myself in the middle of the aisle. Like, what am I going to do? Like, where do I go from here? How do I go up from here? And then all of a sudden, behind me, and through the stained glass, this brilliant light comes shining through.
At night.
Yes, there's a clock in there. This is like 10 o'clock at night. This brilliant light comes shining through. I can see it in my periphery, like right here. But the strange thing is, this light, just like if you're hanging out in the living room, you see light coming through the curtains, you can see the dust particles in the air. And this light, what would look like dust particles, things were shining in it. It's like I didn't know what holiness was, but that looked like holy. That looked like something holy. And when I seen that, I'm like, man, like whoever's giving off such a light, I'm unworthy to look at them. Then the light just stops. But then all of a sudden on the altar, the cloth that's on it gets thrown off and nobody's there. So I'm like, maybe that's my sign. Maybe I have to go up there and it's going to trigger something. I go up there, cautious. I hadn't been in church so long, so I'm like, maybe I put my hands on the altar, something's going to happen. Nothing happens.
Let me get this straight about this clock. A clock?
No, cloth.
A cloth. Oh, the cloth.
Yeah, the cloth on the altar was thrown off. Okay. Yeah. So now it's just the altar with no cloth on it. I go up, I put my hands on it, nothing happens. At this point, it's like late at night. I didn't sleep because the night before I meditated too. So I had been up this was going to be like the second night, and I had super overdosed and I was tired. So I felt the drug effects were already wearing off, and whenever I climbed onto the altar and I curled up in a ball sideways and I fell asleep for a little bit. I woke up because I heard somebody trying to open a side door, so the door was just clanging, and I seen flashlights looking through the windows and stuff. I'm like, oh shoot. It was the police. I guess someone must have called and thought I broke and entered the church. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk to them. I mean, because I've been overdosing on these drugs, and we weren't even always buying them. We were stealing them from the stores. And
now, were you on that altar at one point?
Huh?
Did you get on that altar or not?
Yeah, that's what I fell asleep on it.
You fell asleep on the altar.
Yeah. When the cloth was off, I just climbed onto it.
And then while you were on the altar, you saw the light coming in through?
Oh, no. I seen the light coming through when I was in the middle of the pew.
Oh.
Yeah. And it wasn't until after that disappeared and the cloth was thrown up that I thought that was a sign to approach the altar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I climbed onto the altar and fell asleep. And then, the police came. They went through the front door where I came in and started questioning me. Wanted to see, if I need an ambulance and stuff. I just said yes because I thought maybe that would stop the police from questioning me. So And when I got in there, I remember the person in there that was taking care of me. I told them about how I learned days later about how my mom wanted to abort me, but then, I was saved because of the dream she had with Jesus. And after that, it was so strange because they were checking my vitals in the hospital when I was in the bed. But then it's like I started having these weird, like childlike heavenly visions while I lay there. I remember how I closed my eyes and I used to see all the evil stuff. It was completely opposite this time. I saw what looked like a spiritual umbilical cord coming through the roof of the hospital, and it was going right here into my head. And whenever I closed my eyes, I saw like heavenly visions. I saw clouds, baby angels, and it's like I seen elephants. It was weird. It was just, but it was like heavenly stuff. And then I seen a huge Bible that was just turning pages, and I was like, what is this? And my vitals came back all normal, and they let me go. But it was rough for my friends because they got questioned by the cops too, and they just felt so embarrassed. Like they had to the cops brought my girlfriend home, I think, and was questioning her. And I was not a good boyfriend, not a good friend. But after that, that's when I realized that God was real. It's like I kind of always wanted to believe He was, because when I was younger in that pre-K thing, I was learning about God there. And I had a special moment where like one day I went to like school lunch and I wasn't hungry, and they had a classmate there who was, and I said, "Oh, you could have my food. I'm not hungry." I don't know why I wasn't, but I'm like, "Here, it's no problem." And when I did that, I felt this blessing in my heart. And so I felt that made God happy. And so this is like, years later now, I'm trying to get closer to God because I knew He was absolutely real. I knew that was Him that was there that night. And I remember that, the Bible was supposed to contain, the words of God. And so I looked up on my phone, there was God's gift and promises behind Walmart. So I went over there to find me a Bible, because at this time, when my parents divorced, we stopped going to church. Nobody had a Bible or practiced the faith. So, we were just left to our own devices. And so I went there and I realized there were so many different versions of the Bible. I'm like, oh, Lord, like, what am I supposed to do? But in the book I ended up finding, on the front cover, it shows like Jesus holding a book open. It says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life, Those who follow me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." I'm like, oh, man, that's exactly what I need. I've just been walking in darkness. So after that moment, like, I would just read the Bible from the first page all the way through. I read the whole thing, and I believed every word of it. It was such a drama, too. I was left in tears sometimes. I probably still had some teardrops. They dried up, but, some of the stuff in there, like, had me crying, like, oh, Lord, please don't let this be true. Like, especially in the Old Testament. That was a bit gruesome back then. But, oh, my gosh, like, I seen how God did miraculous things for His people when they repented of their ways, My friend got me this book. It talked about this 3-chord knots not easily broken, and it was through prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. It was this 3-chord knot, and I'm like, man, what? I'm gonna try to use that to get closer to God. I didn't have a job anymore. I quit, so I was just jobless, and I'm just sitting there reading the Bible all day. I'm doing chores around the house. I'm sweeping, I'm cooking, but then I'm reading and I'm fasting and I'm praying a lot, and I'm believing every word I read. And I seen how God did miraculous things for His people when they prayed and fasted, so I would do that too. And my friend's grandma, she told me how one time she fasted for like 5 days straight, just absolutely like no water or food. She felt so close to God. I'm like, you know what? I want to do that too. And so I would have periods where I would just push myself. I would do like 3 days absolute fast, then 5 days. And I just kept going, and I just trusted. I wasn't tempting God, but I was testing my faith in God. I'm like, you know what, Lord, you provided all these different times. I believe you're going to provide for me too. I'm just trying to get closer to you. And I did. Like, there was one particular fast where my girlfriend, she stayed with me at the time. I was not a godly man then, so she stayed in my bed with me. I did like a 3-day absolute fast. She wasn't aware of it. And for this particular time, the Lord gave me this blessing where I had woke up And when I did, I felt as if there was this spiritual blanket hovering above me. And there was this, like these dewdrops that slowly fell. It was beyond the normal laws of nature to where, you know how rain falls. It did not fall at that normal rate. It was very slowly. And when it touched me and it like popped, I felt refreshed and rejuvenated. Like I felt satisfied even though I didn't eat nothing for 3 days or drink anything. And I no longer felt dry. I felt rejuvenated. And even my girlfriend ended up waking up and she felt refreshed, like she just came from the best sleep. I'm like, oh, Lord, you even shared this blessing with her and she doesn't even realize it. And I just continued to do that, and I would get close to the Lord. And he told me one time in spirit that, you know, you are worth more than all the gold and silver in the world. And when he said that, it really pierced my heart because I was not working at this time. I was just praying and working around the house and just talking to God. I felt useless, and I've been called useless, and I began to believe that because I had no drive or ambition. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And when God said that to me, it really pierced me because he's God. He cannot lie. I don't know why he's seen so much value in me when I didn't, and no one else would view me like that either. But I was so touched. I was so touched when he said that. And another time he told me, you know, I will never abandon you. Because I felt like that at times. After my parents' divorce, I didn't see my dad in many years. So just skill-wise, I was behind compared to a family that was well put together. I didn't really know how to do much for myself. Change oil, change tires, you know. I didn't have a lot of these life skills where my dad would be present there. And even when he was with me when I was younger, I wasn't really paying attention because I was just a kid. I didn't see the value in all that. And I kept trying to draw closer to God. So I'm like, you know what? I started calling all the churches around me, trying to find work. I was like, I just wanted to do something for the Lord. I ended up working at Annunciata, helping the handyman there, Mr. Elgin at the time, and I was surprised he was able to do what he did. I remember I was painting the confessional, the room right before the confessional, and I met Mr. Billy Gaston. And at the time, I think Father Joseph was there, and he actually sat me down and began to teach me to prepare me for the rite of confirmation because I'd never been confirmed. I remember when we used to go to church when I was younger, like my mom told me we couldn't receive, and we didn't know why. But it's because we never went through confirmation. We was all baptized, but we was never confirmed. And so he began to gradually bring me through that process, and he was preparing me for my first confession. And it was so funny because I remember he was preparing me. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm just going to wait for Father to tell me when. And at this time, you know, because I realized God was real and that he loved me, I wanted to show that I loved him too. So I was going to Mass every Sunday. And then when I read in Scripture, you know, you're supposed to love your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength. I'm like, man, it's like, I love my girlfriend and I see her every day. I'm supposed to love God more than her. And yet I see and talk to her every day. I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm going to try to see you every day. I'm going to try to go to Mass every day. And so that's what I started doing. And I still couldn't receive. I would just sit in the back. I didn't know until someone told me later that you could go up and cross your arms like this to get a blessing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting there in the back just sulking the whole time when I could get a blessing. So now whenever I try to see someone I feel like they didn't know either, I'll try to tell them because I don't want them to be without. And so like probably 2 months passed and I still didn't have my first confessional with Father. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I want to receive the Lord, so I'm just going to go to confession on my own free will. And when I go in, lo and behold, it's Father Joseph there. And he's all nonchalant, like, hey, Michael. I'm like, oh, how can you be so nonchalant? I've been waiting for you to set up my first confessional. But then, you know, we do it. I had a lot of stuff, 20 plus years of stuff to confess, my first confession ever. And when he did that prayer of absolution over me, I felt as if in the center of my being, that's what I refer to my heart, the center of my being, it was as if this dark liquid just poured out into the palm of his hand. So after that, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like God's priests really do have the power to absolve us of our sins. It really is Jesus doing it through them. I never questioned it after that. So I'm sitting there in my walk trying to draw closer to the Lord. I ended up going to like this led by the men's Holy Spirit prayer group that Mr. Billy used to do. That's where I learned how to pray the rosary It was pretty easy. I just would, recite it after them. I didn't think much of it. But then that time, it's like that night in my dream, I think some holy man came to me and said, pray the rosary once a day. It's like partaking in a great illumination. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that sounds like a good thing. So I started praying it daily. I would miss it some days. I would fall asleep during it sometimes. And during my just walk with the Lord, I began to write my dreams because after that conversion experience, I felt like the Lord was really speaking to me in my dreams. They weren't just like my normal dreams I had anymore. I felt like the Lord was there talking to me. And like sometimes I wouldn't even recognize him because he would be in the image of, I would perceive him in the image of a friend or an acquaintance. But then he would say, no, I'm like, I don't really know you. He's like, no, you know me. I'm like, no, like my friends know you, but I don't really know you. But then I realized after the fact it was the Lord, and he would talk to me and he would teach me things. And so I began to, he said he would teach me about this unclean spirit. And I'm a young man in my 20s with a girlfriend. So one of these things I learned about was this spirit of lust. As a young man, we all kind of deal with this problem. And so I'm trying to walk with the Lord holy, but then in my dreams, I'm having these lustful spirits coming to me. And I would fail at times. I would fail and give in to them. But then there's one time where I'm about to just give into this again, this temptation. I'm like, no. I call out no. Like I call out to the Lord, and then I get pulled back from that situation. And then it's like the Lord just gave me the ability to see. And that spirit that seemed so pretty and tempting, so inviting, all of a sudden it was just mist of great suffering. It was this fog of great suffering. And I say that because it's as if the Lord showed me that their suffering was eternal. I seen it just going into infinity. And it was horrible. It was something I would not wish on any enemy, no matter how horrible there was to me, because their suffering seemed never ending. And it's not something we could actually measure or scale. It's just something no one should ever experience. And when he showed me that reality of what that spirit was, I'm like, I do not want to fall prey to that. Because what it was trying to do to me was trying to make me a free agent of lust. It wanted me to come into communion with it to be more like it, so that I could become a temptation to other people to fall to lust. And I realized I was learning these things in spirit, and it was the Lord that was teaching me. And I asked him one time, I'm like, Lord, why don't I see you for who you are? Like, I know this is you talking to me. And he told me it's because you have to be more humble. I'm like, oh, dang, how do I do that? I don't see myself being so prideful. It's like, how can I be more humble than I am? But I learned I was actually quite prideful. I still struggle with it, but I'm learning to live with humility and this open sincerity I have about just the faith now in my walk with it, because I know all these experiences, I'm not the only one who has it. Other people have these spiritual things, but they're kind of ashamed that other people might think they're crazy. They don't want to open up about it. I mean, I thought I was crazy too. I thought like, man, I think I did so many drugs that I'm becoming schizophrenic. But then the Lord came to me in spirit and he said, write my words. He's like, I speak to you thus because you are one of my consecrated souls. And I didn't know what he meant by that, but I know that whenever we're all baptized, we're consecrated, we're set apart for the Lord. And so because of that, the Lord said, I'm speaking to you because he wants to utilize me in some way. I have the gift of ear, I guess, to listen and interpret. So I guess I was hearing him because he gave me the ability to hear him. It was his will that I could hear him. And so I would try to listen. And I began to, I went through the process. I picked my saint name. I got confirmed. I picked Peter because, I seen how Peter, though he loved the Lord, he betrayed him. And, he didn't acknowledge him before other people. He denied him before the cock crowed 3 times. He denied him. I'm like, man, I can relate, because I know if I haven't denied the Lord vocally, by my actions at times, I've turned my back on him. But I really wanted to love the Lord because when I understood he loved me, I wanted to return that love. It's the least I could do for someone who loved me through all my wickedness. Like back in the day, I used to listen to Lamb of God, Slipknot, Korn. I think there's a song by Slipknot. It was The Heretic. If you're 555, I'm 666. I realized then, though, but even in my youth, as bad as all that stuff was, I was actually being true to my state in life, how I was in my relationship before God. Like there was this song from this band called Drowning Pool. I think it's called Tearing Away. It said, I'm tearing away. Pieces are falling. I can't seem to make them stay. And that's how it was for me in my life. I was gradually just falling apart, and I just didn't know how to keep myself together. But that's where the Lord was. He was there filling in all these cracks I had. These cracks I had from just neglect or not really understanding love, especially not loving myself. He told me I kind of like destroyed my own heart by my own hatred of myself. I couldn't love myself. I didn't see myself as being someone worthy of love, deserving of it. Like, so, at the time I was jobless and I was helping Mr. Elgin. He brought me to this restaurant, Tark's restaurant. It's the country store where they serve food and they have disabled individuals who work there to try to live a meaningful life. And he's like, Mike, have you ever thought about working here? I'm like, you know what? With all my struggles I've had, and I'm like a perfectly capable person, these individuals, they're not, as better off as I am, and yet they seem so cheerful and stuff. It's like, yeah, I would not mind working here. And it was a blessing for me. I ended up working there 8 years, but these individuals had so much love in them. Like, despite whatever disability they have, they had this ardent and pure love in them. I would walk into a room and people would be like happy to see me, like I was an important person. They would all come up to introduce themselves to me, to want to shake my hand. And it was such a shock because they just actually genuinely loved me.
I happened to go there a few days ago to get a biscuit early in the morning. First time ever. And they had one of those people working there, a disabled, sort of a disabled person. It was his first day. And I'm impatient in a hurry, but I'm waiting because I can see he said, it's my first day. So I'm not even there yet. Somebody was in front of me. Watching him, He was having to add and everything. Somebody was there guiding him. And when he finished it, he just was like, I did it. I did it. He was so happy. And I was so happy for him when I finally got my business. I wanted to tell the lady, give the tip to him. He deserves it. He just did a good job. But you're right. They're so honest, and it's something to see.
It really is. Like, I felt like me being there, the Lord really healed my heart because these people viewed me as somebody important and deserving of love. And they really loved me. Like, my coworkers, like almost every day, they would tell me, Mike, I'm proud of you. It's like, Mike, I love you. And just hearing that, that's not something I experience on a daily basis. My dad wasn't around. So I did not experience that. And it was shocking for me. But at the same time, it was healing. My heart really needed that. And the Lord, because of their meekness and littleness, he really would actually come through these people at times. And it was so noticeable because they're so out of character for them. Like, I remember one time I was working in, I was a floater, so I go wherever they need me. I went to janitorial one time. They had a worker there who, he couldn't speak, but he was getting frustrated with this other individual because they was going to sit in this seat that didn't belong to them. And so I'm watching this go down, but he's getting really frustrated. And then all of a sudden, like, a snow globe, you twist it around and you see all the snow circling around it. Yeah. It was as if that happened, but then there was like a vacuum effect right behind that person. So it's as if everything was circling around him. And then there's this pressure that was making us. I was trying not to pay attention. I was hoping the situation would resolve itself, or the staff behind me. I was just a floater. I was hoping they would resolve it. But then it's like, when I felt that pressure, it's like I was forcibly made to look at that situation and acknowledge it. It's like the Lord is saying, like, pay attention to my son. Help him. And so I was trying to say something, but I was real shakily. But then thanks be to God, the staff got up and said something. But like, because that person couldn't speak, God did it for him. Like, he brought our attention to that situation. And there were just other times too, like these clients that I knew would act completely out of character. but because God wanted to either tell them a message or give me a message. And it's so profound to see that. It really did good. It did my faith a lot of good. But it's like, yeah, like after that, I started going to church every day. I started receiving the sacraments. I was praying. I was trying to live this spiritual life, both, here in this waking reality and in my dreams. Like I began to say that when I dream, I'm in spirit now because, like I said, I started recording my dreams because I felt like the Lord was visiting me. I was even going to mass in my dreams. But there's one time during a dream, and it was during the presentation, the priest at the altar said something different in my dream. Instead of saying, "Behold the Lamb of God, behold him who takes away the sins of the world," he said, "Behold the naked glory of God." I'm like, that's weird because when we're here, God is veiled behind the image of the bread. But I guess in spirit, he's not veiled. That's why he said, "Behold the naked glory." It's an unveiled glory of God. And I thought that was peculiar, so I remember that dream. A separate dream, I'm in a library, I'm writing scripture down, and a teacher comes up to me, he looks at my work, and he's like, "Oh, you need to cite that, you need to quote that. It's not you who did it, those aren't your words, you need to quote that." I'm like, man, why can't I just do it like this? I was always terrible at projects. I think it was in elementary, I tried my best on a project, I got a D. After that, I gave up on them. I would ace everything else. So if the project was 8% of my grade, I would get a D. I'd still pass the class, but I just never was good at projects. And so I relived that in that moment, in that dream. When the teacher told me I had to cite that, I got frustrated. And I heard people reacting like, "Why is he doing that?" Blah, blah, blah. Mind you, it's still a dream. So the teacher's taking me outside the building. And for some reason, I feel like wherever I am, I need to stay there. I go and I put my hand on his shoulder. He effortlessly just turns around. We both hold hands like this, and we crouch down to the ground. And I question him, like, "Okay, tell me, where did I hear this from? I never read it in any book, never heard anyone say it, but I said, 'Behold the naked glory of God.'" He looks at me without hesitation, effortlessly. He says, he says, "You heard that in spirit." And when he said that, I was kind of mind blown because I'm like, I heard it in a dream. But he said I heard it in spirit. I never thought that when I'm in a dream, I'm in spirit. But then it makes sense. What happens when you die? That's basically almost like waking up in a dream. You're going to wake up in spirit. Your spirit's going to leave your body when you die. And so when he said that, all of a sudden, I get pulled into his being. And I see this brilliant light there. And I'm beholding this brilliant light. And then I get taken out again. And I remember in scripture, Jesus says he's the way, the truth, and the light. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I believe I seen the light. I know you're right. You're true. And I knew it was Jesus. So after that, like, I began to look at my dreams as not just my own inventions, which sometimes they are. Mm-hmm. Just like I said, when I played games so much, it would become in my dreams. I began to distant myself from all those distractions. All I did was pray and work and read and just fast. And I began to see scriptures in my dreams. And I would learn things, and things were more clear. It was crazy because it would be so difficult at times that I would be in my bed tossing and turning because that's just how great my temptation was to game, to do something. Like, I was reading so much, I wasn't even thinking I was understanding it anymore, but I would do it because I just wanted to get away from my past habits. And I remember I had this armor on in spirit. And the Lord told me, if you stay like this, you will be strong. I'm like, oh man, Lord, if you're saying that, I wonder what that strength is going to look like. Because you gave Samson super strength and, he did all these things. That's strong. But if you're saying that me doing all this and I feel weak because I'm fasting, that I'll be strong, what does that strength look like? And I worked in yard care a lot too when I worked at Tark. So I would fast during that too. And I'm just having the body of Christ as my nutrients and the blood of Christ. I think I would drink water. I would limit myself to water too. So whenever I'd sweat and perspirate, I'm literally like sweating out the body and blood of Christ. And one time I remember we just did this real difficult contract, and I was just pushing myself to finish. And I was tired and sweating. I'm like, oh man, I feel disgusting. We get into the truck, and then all of a sudden my client behind me is like, oh man, what is that good smell? Somebody smells really good. I'm like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, somebody smells really good. I'm like, Jesus, was that you? You know, because you hear about some miracles with praying the rosary stuff. Whenever we had rainy days, I'd pray the rosary inside the unit, and I'd smelt the strong smell of roses. I knew it was the Blessed Mother being there. And she would appear to me too in my dreams and in just this waking reality, because one time she told me to bring my friend to Cursillo with me. And when I went to the meeting, the guys was stressing the importance of not being here by yourself, to bring a friend with you. I'm like, oh, thanks, Blessed Mother. Like, I'm actually living up to that model because of you. And that was literally after I came out of like holy hour. She told me to bring them. And I did. They cared so much about me that they wanted me to do that. And it's like now I pray the rosary daily. I go to confession at least once a month. Lord knows sometimes it's once or twice a week, or, you know, depends how bad I'm failing. But it really shows the profound love God has for us, because you get to a point where you fail so many times that it's like, what's the point? It's like, I'm going to go back and probably do it again. But then it's like, I'll hear either a song on the radio, a person passing by, and it'll be a phrase that'll just stick out to me and just speak directly to my situation. Like, I remember I brought one of my school friends to, he's of a different denomination, but I brought him to adoration one time, and his parents and everyone was calling him and worried about him, so we had to leave early. The second we got into the car and we flipped on the radio, the song that came on was like, every step you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you. And like, can't you see you belong with me? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, look, the Lord's talking to you. He's literally saying how much he feels for you. Like, this is literally his emotions towards you, because you're not of this faith and stuff, so this is all new to you, but like, this is how the Lord speaks to you.
So once you got confirmed and started receiving the Eucharist, you had no more temptation to do any more drugs, huh?
No, I've been quit that.
But you haven't done them. You had temptations at that time, but you didn't do it anymore after.
I would even say I had temptations. Like, I had this temptation. I don't think it's bad to do like a float tank. They have something like that where you go into like a deprivation chamber in New Orleans. I thought about doing that, but other than that, no. It's like because now, like, what I would do, I would see the Lord in my dreams now.
Without drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's not even in my dreams. His voice, he would speak to me sometimes in this waking reality. Like, one time I was fasting a lot, and I was in the car. I'm like, man, Lord, I don't know how much I could keep doing this. And then all of a sudden, like, his hand's right there on my lap to comfort me. Or I was walking at work because I think I used to bike my engine blew in my car. I didn't change the oil in it. I didn't know I had to. That's just how inexperienced I was, you know. And I ended up blowing an engine, and I was walking to work, and one of my coworkers felt bad and gave me her bike, and I started using that. And just one of these days, like, when I got up and I was getting ready, like, I felt the Lord's hand just manifest right there. It's like, you know, I'm there with you. He even told me in spirit before, he's like, Michael, do not feel so alone when you are alone, because I am with you. I'm like, man, you're right. Or I would be so stressed out at times, and he's like, Michael, it's like, you're not living like you trust in me. I'm like, oh, shoot, you're right. Because if I did, I'd be at more at peace in this situation. So it's like, man, Lord, it's like, I know you're there now, but I'm just going through the motions. I'm human. You know this. I'm going to go through the emotions, but at the end of the day, I'm going to really try to trust in you. I just wish that sometimes my actions better represent that reality.
Can we both agree on one thing, that there's no high like when you're high in the Lord?
Yeah.
Drugs are not that good.
Exactly. Like, it's worth finding true happiness sober than having to crutch onto a video game or drugs or something like that, because then you become dependent on it.
No high like a natural high.
Yeah. And even then, you know, the Lord made us for himself. Like, our hearts are restless until they rest into the Lord. Like, even now, I'll still feel a thirst that I cannot quench no matter what. Like, I'll go to Sonic, give me a slushie, I'll have ice cream, drink a bunch of cold water, but I still have that thirst, and I know it's for the Lord. It's unless I read something spiritual or encounter the Lord one way or another, I will always have this thirst and this desire that can only be satisfied by him. But I'm grateful that I have that faith and that knowledge to know that, because back when I didn't have the Lord like that, I would cling to anything else for that, looking for that. But now that I know it's found in the Lord and it's been satisfied at times, it's like, now if I find myself lost, at least now I'm lost in love. I'm not lost in sin.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for your testimony. Enjoyed having you here. And hope to see you again soon. I know I'll see you at church and adoration.
Oh, yeah.
I see him there all the time.
It's my pleasure. I really appreciate this opportunity to just speak about the goodness of the Lord, because I know others need to hear about that.
Well, thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Amen.
Amen.